Hello friends, so welcome to the day 2 of CISM preparation. So today our main aim is to start the study of the CISM. Yeah, in the last day, in the day 1, we discussed about the planning phase and we discussed about the other things, but today our main aim is to study the overall preparation for the CISM. So when we are going to study about CISM, the whole CISM certification is about the management of security. So that is the reason it is most important for us to understand what exactly security is. And we should know the concept of security first. With this, we should know the concept of industry. And once we know these concepts of enterprise management, of security management, then only we can say, yes, we are ready for the CISM examination. That is the reason most of the people feel the language of the book is quite complicated because they are not able to understand all the concepts altogether, right? So our main aim in the whole this 10-day session is first we are going to take the terms, right? Once we have those terms with us, it means the understanding of those terms, then only we will move to the exact concepts. That's why I have divided all the domains, all the 4 domains into 2 days. The first day we are going to take the terms and the concepts related to that particular domain, and the sorry, and on the very next day we are going to take the exact task statement which are given in that particular domain, right? So starting for today we are going to start with the very basics, and till the end we are it means we will touch most of the concepts which we require for the domain 1 of CISM, right? So the domain 1 of CISM is about information security governance. So 2 things are important here. One thing is about information security, which we need to understand. The second is the concepts related to governance like strategy, goals. Okay, so we need to understand all these concepts. So basics, we will create a base today. Over the base, we are going to take each and every task statement one by one tomorrow. And for each and every task statement, we are going to link all these basics there. We will are going to use all these basics there. And finally, we are able to see what exactly those task statement meaning is, right? So starting from security, I just want to say that security, or we can say the information security, is protecting the CIA value of the information or the systems which are storing those information, right? So CIA is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? I think it is a very basic only, but that is what required for that particular examination. That's why we are starting from the very basic, and for each and every domain we are going to do that only. So confidentiality normally prevents the unauthorized disclosure of information, and integrity refers to the ability to protect information from improper modification or deletion, destruction, like that. And availability is whenever anyone required that particular information, it should be available at that moment of the time. That's what availability is. It means authorized users should get the information as and when they require it, right? So to implement security in any environment, we need to have some basic concepts which we call as principles. So we need to understand those principles also as per the ISO 19 to 49 standard, and as per this NIST standard, and also as per the S&S standard. They have given multiple principles. So total 10 principles are given in S&S standard. So some of the principles I have written down here which are important as per this particular domain itself, like principles of least privilege, need to know principle, segregation of duty principle. Then criticality and sensitivity are 2 terms which are important in respect of this particular domain. So we need to understand what exactly they mean and what exactly the implementation of these can have an impact on the security, right? So starting with the very first one, principle of least privilege. So as per these principles, we need to give minimum access, or we can say bare minimum access to the resources to any people or process, right? So giving a bare minimum access to the resources is what list principles of least privilege is. Then the second principle is need to know. Need to know means, okay, in the list privilege we are allocating access, of all the resources which are required for that particular purpose. But in need to know, whenever a purpose is raised, whenever the requirement will come, then only the access will be provided, or then only the information will be provided. It is not so that the each and everything, like even if it is the list one, but it is not provided. Okay, it will be provided as and when required. That is the concept of need to know. And the third one is segregation of duties. So it is this particular principle we use to prevent any error, or we can say any fraud, by ensuring that at least minimum at least two individuals are there to handle any any responsible, or we can say separate part of a single task which is very important for that particular organization. So these three principles, principle of least privilege, need to know, and segregation of duty, is very important to understand. So that's why I'm starting from here. Then comes criticality and sensitivity. So while we are categorizing the information, then depending on its impact and depending on its disclosure, we are categorizing any particular data or information, right? So depending on the impact is criticality. If there is a very big impact of the loss of that particular asset or that particular data, then we say that the severity level, or we can say we can put that particular thing in a high severity level. The criticality of that particular application is very high. Suppose if any particular web server is unavailable and it is having an impact on the overall business of the whole organization, then we can say that this particular system is highly critical. This is very critical system. Okay, same thing is with sensitivity. If any particular data is very much sensitive or very much important for that particular organization business, then we will call it as a very sensitive data. That's what, like take one example. If Coca-Cola company is, the formula of Coca-Cola is with the uh, Coca-Cola company, so that is the most sensitive information for that particular organization. So whatever systems, those who are carrying that particular sensitive system information, then those are highly critical systems. Okay, so that's how we define the sensitivity of the systems in any particular environment, which is important for us in this particular CISM examination. So the second thing is about the security. We need to know some more terms like the AAA. We are having two triads in security. One is a CIA triad, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad. The second triad is the AAA triad. AAA means authentication, authorization, and accounting. So whenever any particular system, any particular user come to a system, they will first identify themselves. That is, we call it as identification. Once that particular identity, we will match into that particular system and say yes, it is there, and the user will provide a particular password for that particular identity. Then if it is a correct password, we will authenticate that particular user, right? So once we authenticate that particular user, depending on the set criteria for that particular user, we will authorize the access of the resources for that particular user. That's what authorization means. And finally, accounting. Whatever activity that particular person is doing in that particular system, all those activity will be recorded. Okay, so we call this particular function as accounting function. And the next function is non-repudiation. So if suppose in the future the user is saying no, I have not done or I have not executed this command in that particular system. Okay, if we have proper mechanism of the same, if we have proper mechanism of the logging activity of the user and also taking some I can say, it means if we are properly following the authentication, authorization, and accounting part, then the particular user also cannot say that he or she has not run that particular command on so and so date and time, because we have proper logs of each and everything from the starting identification phase till the accounting phase. We need to maintain the logs of each and everything. Same thing as an email. If I received an email from your side, right, and you are saying no, you have not sent that particular mail, but whenever you started to generate that particular mail from your system, your email server, they kept a particular, they digitally sign it, right, and then send it. So by digitally signing it from your side, I can identify it. No, the digital signature is yours only because of the same, because using the public key of the same, I'm able to decrypt same, right? So I can ensure it, yes, it is from your side only. So that is non-repudiation, which ensure that the user cannot deny his or her any action or any act. So the third term is access control. It is the act of controlling who has the access, when has the access. So that is what access control is. So using a network access controller is kind of a access control device which we are using in any particular network. Then the next term is the privacy, which means freedom from unwanted intrusion or disclosure of information, right? So it is very important in respect of this exam to understand privacy and also the compliance. Compliance is an act of measuring policy, procedure, control to ensure that they are implemented and they are followed and also they are very effective in that particular environment. So compliance can be for different things. It is a legal compliance, technical compliance, then regulatory compliance. So compliance can be of different types also. But we need to understand that these are the important terms. With this, these are the security related terms which are important to understand because ultimately CISM is about security only. So many times you will see that most of the terms are related to security side. You need to understand the controls, physical, technical, all those also, but in the near future. So let's move into the next one. So the next topic is about governance. So I can say governance is a action or manner of governing a state or organization. That is the definition of governance term. But if we say it in a normal language, we can say governance body means a top level body which is governing it. It means which is controlling the whole organization. They are setting the path for the whole organization to follow, right? So that's what governance is. Governance means to set the path for the whole organization. Governance body, they will set, okay, this is my target. Okay, this is my target to achieve. This is my goal which we need to achieve. That's what governance is. So it is the, and then finally checking whether the whole organization is following towards or moving towards that goal or not. And in between they keeps on checking and they keeps on advising the management. So that's why I have given a clear picture here in which the governance body is the topmost body. It is composed of two, that is board of director of that particular company and even the senior management, right? Then like the executives and all those. So and even the stakeholders which are not within that particular organization, but they have some stake in that particular company, some interest in that particular company. So we call them as stakeholders. So we have two types of stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders, the top management and the board of directors, they are internal stakeholder. External stakeholder who do not have any direct involvement in the company, but they have either some investment in the company or they have some other interest in that particular company. That's why we call them as an external stakeholder, right? So the combination of the board of director stakeholder and the executive, it means the top level management, we call them as the governance body. Okay, and this is the body which set the path for the whole organization. Okay, so in simple language we can say that it is an act, governance is an act of creating a plan on how a company will achieve a goal and then making sure that everyone execute or follow that particular plan. So that is what governance means. Now governance can be of different types, like the whole complete governance of the complete organization, we call it as a corporate governance. Okay, then we can have IT governance and we can have information security governance. So there's a big difference because IT and information security is a separate domain and IT governance is a separate domain, and both of them overlap together because information may be within the IT systems or it can be outside the IT system. It can be on a pen and paper also. It can be in some other form also, right? So that's why information and but both of them overlap with each other. So this particular overlapping part, we call that overlapped part as IT security element. Okay. So IT security element cover the security of each and everything, every information I'm saying, which is there in those systems which are within the IT domain, like data in a server or information of the client within the server is what is a data within the IT system, and providing security to the same are the IT security element which we need to take care of. Okay, so with this, I think we are able to understand what exactly governance means. But governance will set a goal, and that's what our next target is. But there's one more diagram here to understand the governance in terms of the COBIT standard. In terms of the COBIT standard, governance, every business have some need. Okay, suppose I started one company which is doing some online registration for, I can say, flight booking. Okay, so while this particular company need to do this particular thing, they have some business needs, right? Business needs of capturing the information from different portals. So the governance will evaluate all these business needs. Yes, that this particular company, the company which that particular governance body is governing, so they will say, okay, we require the information from 10 different portals. Then they evaluate the whole thing, what exactly they can do in that. Then they direct the lower management. This is what you need to do. And they keeps on checking whether what they said, whether that is followed or not, right? So they will evaluate the business requirement. According to those business requirement, they will set some goal. For that particular goal, they will direct the management to do some things, right? The management will do it in a plan, build, run, and monitor way. They will just plan for that, then they will build a business analysis plan and then start doing that. And then finally, they will run that particular thing and then they will monitor it and then inform the governance body again. So this is how the overall structure of the governance body is working on. So moving further is our goals. So goal, we can say goal is the result we want to achieve. Okay. Goal can be of different types, short-term goal, long-term goals. But here we are just focused what exactly goal is. If you know the meaning of goal, then it is quite easy for you to understand the whole thing. So the result we want to achieve is goal. So we can say when we're talking about goal, then it is set by the top management that this is our business need. For this particular business need, this is what we need to do. So they will set a goal, and to achieve that particular goal, what we need to do, we need to create some strategies for different kind. Like for the marketing strategy we will create to achieve that particular goal. Business strategy we will create, like long-term strategy we will create, short-term strategies we will create. So all these things are related to strategies. Okay, so we can say strategy is a plan of action to achieve the goal. Governance will set a goal. Goal will be achieved by using some strategies which is combinedly set by the top management and also by the management level. Okay, so we can say strategy is a plan of action to achieve that particular goal. Okay, then comes the policies. So we can say policy are the high level statement of what the senior management expect and will dictate the direction to the lower management. And even whatever the the procedure guideline will come, they will be based on the policy only. If in the policy we are saying that we require this much of security in our environment, that is a policy. Like for the I can say, just taking an example only, that in a policy we are saying that we will have a 99.999% uptime. Okay, so that's what is defined in our policy, that in the CIA, while providing security to the overall infrastructure, in the same we will have a uptime of 99.99% of the overall application. So we need to maintain that particular, that is what given in our policy. To maintain that particular level, we need to set some standards. In the standard, we will give controls, that this is the control we will implement. We will implement DDoS protection. We will have a RAID architecture at the component level. Then we will have multiple it means parallel servers in running in clusters. Then we will purchase some outside services. We will purchase 2 internet connections. So these are what, to maintain, to achieve that 99.999% of target set in the policy document. We need to use some controls. Those controls we will take it from where? We will take those controls from standards. Standards, we will just refer some international standard like COBIT and other standards, and then we will make, the organization will make their own standard depending on those, depending on the applicability in their environment, right? So that's what, and policy statement will tell us that these are the standards which can be used to achieve whatever is written in that particular policy. So normally it is well developed and it remains unchanged till the time there is a major change. There's no need for, it means very frequent changes in policy, right? So that's what policy is. Then comes the standard. I already told you that standards set the parameter which can be followed using the procedure or best practices. So it means, like we are saying that I want to achieve this. Okay, I'm setting a standard for myself. Okay, so standard document in any company, they will set some parameters that this is what we need to achieve, and all whatever parameters they are setting, all those parameters are totally depend on the policy statement which is written or the policy document which is there in that particular organization. Okay. Sorry. So this standard, whatever I can say control objectives or controls which were written in that particular standard, then automatically to achieve those control objectives, we will use those controls, and those controls are the parameters for us. Those control objectives are the parameter for us, and to achieve those parameters, what we will use? We will use the procedure documents. We will use the best practices or guideline document. So we can say the whole standard is as per the direction of the policy document. Okay. Moving further, you are writing down some queries here. Definitely, I will just answer them, but I will answer only after this class. Then I will answer these queries. So next comes the procedure and the guidelines. So we started from governance. Governance is managing the whole thing, doing a plan, setting a goal. Then for to achieve that particular goal, we are using a strategy. In that particular strategy, uh, for strategy is a plan. Okay. Then we are setting a policy. Policy is giving a direction to that particular plan. And then that particular policy, we will use a standard to set some parameter to achieve whatever is said in that particular policy, right? Toward those goals which are given in the strategy and this governance document. Then finally, we have procedures. So procedures are at the lowest level. They are the step-by-step guide to implement the things, to implement what exactly need to be achieved. Okay. So and guidelines contain information that is helpful when executing those procedures. So guidelines are not mandatory, but procedures are mandatory documents. It is very important to understand the difference between a guideline and a procedure. So let's have a bigger picture of all these things. Whatever we have discussed till now, we need to have a bigger picture of this. So when we are saying bigger picture, then we need to understand that security governance. Here we are talking about security only, security management. As we have already discussed about the corporate management, corporate governance, and the security governance. So in security governance, there is a strategic planning. There is a strategic risk tolerance which will be set by the top authority that this is what we can tolerate, this much of risk we can tolerate, right? So as per the risk tolerance level, we will make a strategic planning. Okay. Then we will set our organization structure that this is a CISO, this is a ISO, this is the team structure, everything will be defined. So whatever we have defined the organization structure, we need to assign some roles and responsibilities to those people, right? So that will be taken care, also taken care in the security governance itself, roles and responsibilities. And we need to make an enterprise architecture. Now this enterprise architecture will be of contextual nature. We are going to discuss the same in the coming slides. That from the that this is what I want to achieve. So that is a just a context I'm saying that this is what conceptual. Then finally till the lower level we have a physical architecture of whatever the things which we are going to implement. Then finally we have the policies and we have the guidance. As per the security budget, we will create the policies and the guidance for the same. So this is what security guidance is. So policy, strategic planning are part of the security governance. Then we have management. So in management, we will create a cybersecurity framework definition that this is what we need to secure. And then we will select the control that this is out of NIST standard or XYZ standard, which I am going to use. So we will select some controls and then we will allocate resources to them that for this particular control that the traffic should be limited, traffic should enter into our network. So this is a control which we have taken from one particular standard. Then to implement that particular control, what we require firewall. So we will purchase a firewall. So that is allocation of the resources. Then finally implementation. So in implementation, we will implement and deploy everything. Attack detection is the part, performance measurement, maintenance, attack recovery, auditing, update, patching, generate. It means these are the lower level jobs which we need to do. So these are the three categories which we have divided here in the bigger picture. So once you have the understanding of this bigger picture, then whatever scenario you are getting in the exam, it will be very easy for you to understand the same and to work on that particular and then answer the respective question which you got in the exam. So that is the bigger picture of the overall security domain. So let's have some more understanding of the strategy. So strategy, it means I can say that it has some elements, it requires some resources, it requires some constraints. So that's what strategy is. Okay, so when we are talking about strategy, we have the top level, they set some, it means the governance body, they set some, but they will set some this okay, they set some goal. To achieve those goals, we will use strategy. In the strategy, we will from strategy, via strategy, we will create policy. From policy, we will create a standard. As per the policy, we will create a standard, and on those to achieve that particular standard, parameter set in that particular standard, we will use procedure. So just remember this whole thing, the whole starting to end. That is most important thing, right? So moving to the strategy part, strategy, three things are important in strategy. Strategy is a plan to achieve the goal. So it means in strategy, we should know where are we now, where do we want to go, and what is the gap between the 2 points, where exactly we are and where we want to go. So that is the gap in between them, and what we need to do to close that particular gap. So four questions are there in strategy, which the uh, strategy is going to answer. It means where are we now, current state, where do we want to go, the future state, and the what is the gap in between them, and how we can close that particular gap. So that is what strategy is. Whether what kind of strategy it is a business strategy, marketing strategy, whatever strategy you are going to use, these are the four questions what the strategy is going to answer. So, but to so strategy have some elements which you need to understand. So the biggest we can say the biggest component are going to be the resources and constraints that need to be examined while creating the roadmap. So elements means the roadmap from creating one point to the other point. Okay, and if we are talking about the resources, resources can be, it means the overall thing like the policies, standard, procedure, guidelines, architecture, controls, countermeasures, layer defense, business impact analysis, risk analysis, training, awareness, education, whatever things are there which we can use to achieve that particular goal comes under the resources. But there are some constraints also, and the biggest constraint can be budget, legal, physical location, ethics, cultural differences, or we can say personal, then resources, then risk appetite. So these are the constraints. So these are the three things. Just ignore this particular point. So these are the three things which we need to take care when we are setting a strategy. The elements which we are having, the resources to achieve that particular strategy, and then constraint. Then finally, roles and responsibilities. So when we are talking about roles and responsibility, we need to understand again some of the things which are important. So like if we are saying roles and responsibility, so first we need to have a organizational structure. I think there are some mismatch of the slides, so I will just correct before putting the slides on the this Google Classroom. I will just change the slides because I think in the PDF there are some differences. So I will just change those differences there. Okay, so when we are talking about roles and responsibility, we need to have a organizational structure. In the organizational structure, we are having that this is the person who is having this particular role. So, but role is what? Role is a title which we give to someone based on their job description or job function. And on that particular role, that particular person has some responsibility. So we can say responsibility is a description of something that a person with that particular role is expected to perform. Okay, so we can say role is a job function and responsibility is the expectation from that particular job function. Okay, so that is what we need to understand in roles and responsibility. So when we are talking about roles and responsibility, there is one term RACI, which is very important in terms for this particular exam. RACI means R means responsible, A means accountable, C means consulted, I means informed. So whenever we are going to deal with any particular situation, we need to know that within this organization structure, what exactly the role of this particular person is, right? So we can say the person is responsible for this particular kind of information, right? But this person is accountable. This person we should only need to consult. There's no need to make him responsible or accountable, and this person we should inform. So normally the top management, we will just inform them that this is what exactly happened, and whatever the lower people are doing, we will just make them responsible and make them accountable for the overall things which are going on. So we can say the person who is responsible for executing the action is responsible, and the person who makes sure that the action is executed but does not do it by themselves is a accountable person. It means the managerial level. And then the consultant, the person who optionally takes part in the execution part, we will just consult with them and inform the person who stay informed about the status of the execution. We call them as a informed party. So whenever we are doing anything in security, we need to keep these four terms in our mind, and via that only we can say that this is what need to be done for this particular person. So we put some people in the I can say CC, in some person in BCC. That is the reason: responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So these are the terms, these are the concept which we need to have in our mind while using this. Okay, then one more thing is there which is missing in this particular slide, which I will just update in the slide which I am going to provide you in the Google Classroom. That is skill. So skill is the, I can say, the training, the expertise, or the experience an individual has for a given role, and which must be considered when populating a RACI matrix. RACI means responsible, accountable, and communicated and informed. Okay. So moving to the next one. So the next one is about the standard. When we are talking about the standards and the framework, we should understand what exactly those standards and framework are. So there are different standard, different frameworks available, but we need to understand some of the terms which are very important, and some of the, it means even if you do not know anything in detail of these standards, but you should know where exactly these standards came from, what exactly the purpose of these standards are. Like this first model, this is of COSO, right? COSO means full form of the COSO is Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Threadway Commission. That is COSO. So it is a we call it as a framework. Sorry. So this particular framework is having different components like control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring activities, which is used at in operations, in reporting, and in compliance. Ultimately, whatever the divisions we are going to do. So ultimately, we are having this COSO structure in that particular thing. So I'm not going in detail here. I'm just giving you the idea what are the standards we have. But whenever required, we are going to go in depth in each and every detail of these standards, whether it is the ISO, COBIT. So I just want to say, share with you one more thing, that the CISM is majorly based on two standards. One is the COBIT, the second one is the ISO. So majorly it is using these two standards only, but some here and there you feel that there's a reference of some other standards also, right? So these are some of the standards. Okay, moving further, let's take these standards one by one. So the first one is the COBIT. COBIT is the full form of COBIT is Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies. So it is not only related to information security, it is related about the information technology, the whole COBIT. So there are 5 principles of COBIT. So it means currently the newest version of COBIT is 2019, but previously it was 2000. The COBIT 5. So you need to understand both of them. There's no much difference between them, but in COBIT 2019 there are some add-on. So you need to understand those. That is the only thing. But it is very important in respect of this particular exam to understand the COBIT standard, because you will find that so many times they are discussing about the COBIT standard. In so many questions, they are thinking in a level of the COBIT standard. So that's why it's very important for you to understand. So I'm giving you a brief reference, because here we do not require to go in depth. Just I'm giving you a brief reference that this particular COBIT standard is based on 5 key principles, and they are having 7 enablers. So these 5 principles are, first one is meeting stakeholder needs. So this is the stakeholders. Stakeholders, as we already discussed, that the board of directors and the upper management, also the outside parties who have some interest in our company. So we call them as stakeholder. So we need to take care of the stakeholder needs. That is the very first principle. The second principle is covering the enterprise end to end. It means we need to cover the whole enterprise, right? We should not leave any particular part of that particular enterprise. So that is our second key principle. The third one is applying a single integrated framework. So whatever framework we are going to use, whether it is COBIT 5, then each and everything should be aligned as per the COBIT 5 framework only. So then the fourth principle is enabling a holistic approach. It means that reveals the fact that an effective and efficient governance of the enterprise IT requires a holistic approach. If we have a holistic approach, then only we can have a complete understanding of the overall working of the whole organization, then only we can have this holistic approach. So we can say that these principles are depend on 7 enablers. It means whenever these 7 enablers are there, then only we are able to reach the goals which are set by the governance level. And these 7 enablers are: first, the principles, policies, and framework. It means whenever we are going to implement COBIT 5 in any environment, we should follow the principles, 5 principles set by the COBIT. We need to have policies and framework. Then the second enabler is processes. Third enabler is we need to create our organizational structure. The fourth enabler is culture, ethics, and behavior. And the fifth enabler is information. And the sixth enabler is service, infrastructure, and application. And the last is people, skills, and competencies. Right. So with this 7 enablers, we can say that we are able to have a holistic approach of the overall organization. If we are covering each and every domain, from the documentation part till the people part, we are covering each and everything. That is what COBIT 5 is. And even COBIT 2019 is based on COBIT 5 only. So that is also based on this only. So we can say this the fifth principle is separating governance from management. It means there should be a complete separation of the governance body and the management body. There should not be any overlapping on those, right? So that is what this COBIT standard is all about. So we can say policy, if principle, policy, and framework, they translate a desired behavior into guidelines for day-to-day management. And processes, the second enabler, are the activities that achieve a goal and produce an expected output. And the organization structure are the people or the group that make decisions. Culture, ethics, and behavior of individuals and the entire organization are key to success. And the information is required by an organization to continue running, but is also a key product of the organization. Service, infrastructure, and application provide organization with information technology processing and services. And finally, the seventh enabler is people, skill, and competencies. They provide complete activities which make correct decision and they can take corrective actions. So in this way, the 7 enablers will work to achieve the 5 key principles, right? So this is what the COBIT standard is. So let's take the next standard. So the next standard is about the ISO 27000 series. So this 27000 series, it is a set of standard. Here I have taken an example of only one standard out of this whole series. 27001 standard I have taken here, but 27000 series is a set of standard which help any organization to create and to implement a valid security plan by providing a complete framework. So this particular framework have 14 security areas, which is defined given here also. So these 14 security areas, which are mostly, if you compare these with COBIT, you will find that they are already mapped with COBIT. Okay, so whatever is covered here, that is covered in COBIT also. So there is a proper mapping of the same. So we can say that the overall 27001 lays out requirement. It means 27001 with the standard which I have given in the figure here. That is, it gives of the ISMS, implementation of the ISMS. ISMS is Information System Management, Information Security Management System, right? So this is what, and 27002 provide the best practices. 27001 provide the requirement for ISMS, and 27002 provide the best practices for the information security controls. So that is what the ISO 27001 covers: security policy, organization of information security, human resource, asset management, access control, cryptography, physical and environmental security, operation. So these are the 14 overall security areas which it will cover. Okay, moving further, the next one is the TOGAF. Again, I think there are some differences in here. So TOGAF is also the full form of TOGAF is the Open Group Architecture Framework. So it is a framework for enterprise architecture. It is not framework for a lower level architecture. It is framework for enterprise architecture that cover 4 areas called architectural domains. The first one is business architecture, then the application architecture, data architecture, and technical architecture. Like in technical architecture, the firewalls, routers, all these things will come. IPS, IDS. Data architecture describes the structure of the logical and physical data. Okay, and the management resources from where exactly the data is coming, how exactly the data is coming. Okay, so that is a data architecture. Application architecture provide a blueprint of the systems to be deployed and describe their interaction in between, that this system web server will interact with this particular system. So this is a higher level application level architecture. Then comes the business level. It defines the business strategy, governance, and organization and key business function. So that is what TOGAF is. I have given a slide, but to note in this particular PDF, I think there's a mismatch in the same. I will just upload that there. So the next structure is, the next standard is about CMMI. So that is also very important to understand what exactly CMMI is. CMMI is a capability maturity model integration. The full form is that. So it is a framework that helps any organization to reach an elevated level of performance. So if you want to check our performance, any particular organization want to check the level of the work they are doing, the performance of the same. So that can be done via CMMI. So we can say it is kind of a benchmarking of our current capability performance, and we can compare the result with the best practices of the market or of the industry. And if we are able to compare this, then we are able to find the gaps. And if we are able to find those gaps, then we can work on those gaps to move to the next level. So that's why we have different maturity level here, like maturity level 0, maturity level 1, which is initial only, maturity level 2, managed. So whenever any particular organization will go for an CMMI audit, then they will get a level. Okay. Now, once they have that particular level, they have the gap analysis also, that from the next level to that level, what exactly the gap is there. So in this way, next time they keeps on working on those gaps, and then again they will go for an audit and move to the next level. So that's how a CMMI will work. So then comes the ITIL. So ITIL is the full form of is ITIL is Information Technology Infrastructure Library. ITIL, as the name itself say, means that it is a set of detailed practices. Okay, so library, it is a library, so it is a set of detailed practices for managing the IT services with a special focus on aligning all those services with the need of the business. So ultimately, whatever things we are doing it for our business. So whatever things we need to align those things with the business objective. First thing is we need to understand what exactly the business objective is, and then we need to work on those business objectives. So that is what ITIL is. ITIL, we need to cover the service operation, service design, and service transitions, all this. Then comes the culture. So if you're talking about the culture, it is very important in terms for any organization to have a culture, understand the culture of the overall organization to for better results. So every company have a unique culture, every company, even if no one is able to recognize or pinpoint that this is what the culture of the organization is. And normally the culture is set by the top level. So whatever culture they want to implement in their organization, that particular culture can be implemented using the, because it is a top to down approach in culture. So culture here means the beliefs, or we can say the behavior that are expected and are viewed as normal within the company. We call the combination of these as a culture. It means the beliefs and the resulting behavior of some which are expected in any particular circumstances. The combination of this is we call as culture. So in any particular organization, if you want to implement security, I'm just taking one example here. If you want to implement a security, we need to understand the culture of the organization. Okay. If you are able to understand the culture of the organization, then it will be very easy for us to implement security, because we understand how exactly the behavior of the employees will be if we are going to do this, right? So we can take different clues, like we can add other department, multiple department in an information security. When we are making an information security committee, we can take one person from different department. By doing so, that particular person is aware of the culture of that particular group, right? So in this way, we can use the knowledge of that particular person to increase the success of our information security plan. Also, users only know how to identify and report incident. That's why we need to take each and every person from different groups so that they are able to communicate within their group itself, and we can create a culture of security by doing so. Also, people know who the security manager is. Okay, so if any particular person is, they are able to know that this is the person who I'm going to be in touch whenever I am in any particular. It means I'm able to pinpoint any particular incident. Then which is the person I'm able to be in touch, right? And which is the email ID. So all this information comes into combinedly we call them as a culture. So culture we can say is comprised of 7 things in total. So these 7 things are the organizational behavior, how the organization is behaving at any particular moment of. It means if something happened, how exactly the organization is going to behave, how people influence the organization structure so that the work can be done, right? The attitude of the employees of the organization, norms within that particular organization, how well teams work together. That is one more thing, and the existence or lack of any turf wars, or we can say wars between the groups. Okay, so we need to understand all those things, and the geographical dispersion. So depending on the geography, also the beliefs, the thoughts of the people also change. So that is also makes a part of the culture, which we need to understand. Okay, so moving next is the metrics. So when we are saying metrics, if we are not able to measure anything, then we are not able to control that thing. That is a normal thing. So first thing, to control anything, whatever, whether it is speed, whether it is our spending, our money spending, if we are not able to measure how much is my speed, then I cannot say that the uh, within this region the speed maximum speed limit is 100. So if I'm not having a speedometer, then I cannot say what exactly my speed is. So I need to have a speedometer, and that particular speedometer should be accurate enough, right? So that's where the metrics come into picture. So they simply say that there are 2 points. One time, it means 2 points. One point is the reference point, and whatever the point I am in, so I will compare those two, and I will say, okay, my level is this, so I'm at this level. So that's how the speed, that's how the distance. So all these are metrics. All these are metrics only. So in information security also we have some metrics, and we have a proper way of calculating those metrics, and we call it as SMART. It means S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for relevant, and T for timely. The metric specific means the metric is based on any understood goal, which is clear and very concise. Okay. Then measurable means it can be measured. It means it is quantifiable, and it is objective instead of being subjective. We can say, okay, it is a good move. It is a good security practice. And we can say this security practice will reduce my overall incidents to 2%. So that is a more measurable result, we can say. It means quantifiable result we are. Then attainable, the metric is realistic and based on important goals and values. It should be achievable or attainable, we can say. It means whatever the target is, the target should not be that I will give 100% uptime. That is not possible at all. There will be some kind of downtime. So I cannot set a goal which is not attainable or which is not achievable. Then relevant. It means the metric is directly related to a specific goal and or activity. It means if we are talking about uptime, then we should calculate the uptime only. We should not calculate about the incidents or the uh, we can say attempt of bringing down that particular. So it should be relevant to the thing to which we are. It means it should be very relevant. Then the timely, the metric is grounded in a specific time frame. It should be a time bounded. With this, the for the metrics, the other things are also there. Like it should be accurate. It should be cost effective to calculate that particular metric. If it is very difficult to calculate if the cost is going to be very high every time. So I'm not going to calculate that metric again and again. So it should be very cost effective also. It should be repeatable. If I want to repeat the same n number of times, I should get the same result, right? It should be predictive. We can say, okay, this is how we can predict the same. It should be actionable. So these are some other terms which are related to metrics. So the next is state and gap. So this is also very important for you to understand, because in information security, whether you join a new organization or whether you are already working in any particular organization, you have some current state. So that particular current state will tell you that this is where you are. And now, as per the goal defined by the top management, you will get a goal, that this is my goal. So you will get a future state also, that this is my current state and this is my future state. Okay, and the analysis, the difference between them, we call it as a gap. Okay, so first thing we should know the current state, second thing we should know the future state, third we need to calculate the gap between them, and finally we should make a strategy to improve the same. That's what the gap analysis process is all about. So we can say where are we now is the current state, where we want to go is the desired state or the future state, and the work to be done to get from the current state to the desired state, we call it as a gap analysis. So that is what a state and gap thing. So the next is information security, infrastructure and architecture. So if we are going to discuss about this thing, then I want to tell you one thing, that whenever we are going to, one second please. Okay. So whenever we are going to discuss about the architecture, then we need to understand some of the basic concepts of the common framework layer which are there in any organization, concept of the enterprise information security EISA, enterprise information security architecture, and the goal of information security architecture. That is what required in this particular document. So here in this particular document itself, if you are able to pinpoint that, okay, the first thing is infrastructure. Let's understand what exactly infrastructure is. Then we will move to the architecture, and then we will see what exactly the correlation between them is. Infrastructure can be defined as a foundation upon which information systems are deployed. So that is what infrastructure is. So everything like computing platform, network, middle layer, cloud, everything is covered under infrastructure. So we are saying information security infrastructure. It means infrastructure which is related to information security only, and the architecture. So we need to understand what exactly architecture is. So we can say there are some layers. Whenever we are designing something, then there are some layers. First contextual, then conceptual. Contextual means this is what we want to achieve. So that's we will create a layer that this is what we want to. Then conceptual, this is how we can achieve. Then logical, we will start putting some logical things in that. Then physical, that at the physical level I need to put a firewall. On the firewall I need to block these things, and then comes the organizational like patch management and everything which are related. So in this way I'm having a complete structure, and this complete structure we call it as a enterprise information security architecture, right? So it prevent any ad hoc haphazard network architecture that are very difficult to understand and also very difficult to secure. If we go in a proper architecture like that, like first we create concept, contextual, then conceptual, then logical, then physical, and then organizational level. So ultimately, the goal of any information security architecture is to provide a complete structure, to provide, to serve any particular roadmap, to ensure strategic alignment. It means whatever the alignment of the business unit head is, we need to align our information security architecture with that also. Then it should be implementable, it should be easily traceable, we should have proper abstraction layer in the same, and it should be in a very common language, right? So that is what architecture is. So we can say there are several architectural approaches by which we can create architectures that can be developed over years. Then sorry, so there are three categories. One is a process model, one is a framework, and the third one is a reference model. So process model dictates the process used for each and every element, that this is one element, for this element these are the 10 processes which we can use. So some of the models will follow, we will take each one of them separately also, but I'm just giving a idea of all these things. Then the framework like COBIT, SAPSA, TOGAF, all these are very flexible and very open. So we are taking a framework and then we are taking, it means using that particular framework to build the overall architecture. And finally, the reference model. We will take, which are actually any small scale representation in some other industry or actual implementation in some other industry. So we will take those as a reference model, and then we will combine those two together, and then we will. So there are commonly four accepted sections with enterprise architecture. These are business architecture, which are, it means in business architecture, we will just think of exactly what exactly it was. We can say it is a high level strategy and the processes which are required for that particular business. That is what business architecture covers. Then comes the data architecture. It covers the logical and the physical assets related to that particular data. Then comes the application level architecture. That these are the application, how they are able to interact with each other, the relationship with each other in those applications. And then comes the technical architecture, the actual implementation of the same. So we can say contextual means who, what, when, where, and how. Conceptual means combine the architectural design with the business concept, that is conceptual. Logical means which gives the relationship between the elements, okay. And physical means which give the relationship between the security mechanism. And organizational means which is define the organization security architecture, right? So that is what information architecture. So many organizations who have attempted to implement any particular framework like SAPSA or Jackman, they have found it difficult to maintain a rapid changes, right? That's why using the COBIT is much more helpful in that particular. Sorry. So moving to the next one, that is BMIS. It is very important to understand, and you will find definitely 3 to 4 questions on this one. So the reason for the same is it is a very important part, because if you're talking about business model for any particular industry or even for information security, then we need to understand the elements first, that these are the 4 elements which are associated to this building, to this particular. So the elements are organization, okay, the organization structure, everything is covered in that organization. Then the people working in that particular organization, the technology which those people are using and which is purchased by that particular organization, and the process which is given by the organization governance committee, that this is the process which we need to use. So the combination of these is the BMIS. Okay, right? So we are going to take each and every, let's take each and every component one by one. The first one is the organization. It means it is a network of people, asset, and process. That is what required in any organization, which interact with each other in defined roles and responsibilities, and they will work toward a common goal which is given by the governance body. So that is what the organization is. Then comes the people. So people is the second element which represent the humans in the equation, along with all of the security problem they bring, like uh, any HR related or whatever it is. It means anything which is related to human, like recruitment process, employment issues, then termination issues, all these are related to people. Then comes the process. So sorry, process is the third element. So process is how we are going to implement the design of our strategy. Whatever strategy was decided, how we are going to implement that particular strategy, right? So that's how the process will come. It means meet some type of business requirement and align with the policy, be adaptable to changing requirement, be well documented, be reviewed periodically. All these are covered under processes, right? So processes are the one which help us to achieve all these things. And then comes the technology. So technology seems to be a very bigger one, but actually if we see this particular triangle, each and everything is having equal importance. So there is an equilibrium in between all of them, right? So whenever there is any change in one of them, then automatically the whole pyramid, BMIS pyramid, will have any impact. Suppose any particular people leave our particular organization, so whatever roles and responsibility he is handling, some other person is going to handle the same. So it will require some uh, time to adjust the whole equilibrium again. So that is how the triangle is working. So this particular triangle, within these 4 elements, there are some interconnection. There are total 6 interconnection. So these 6 interconnections are the culture. Culture means the organization and the people. In between them will be the culture. Governance, uh, organization top body need to give the governance plan and everything. So that's why it will directly interact with the process. It will directly give with the process. So we can say governance is a relationship between the organization and the process. Okay. And culture is the relationship between the organization and the people. And architecture is what the organization give to the technology. Enabling and support is the relationship between the process and the technology. Okay? And emergence is the relationship between the process and the people. So we can say people will always uh, cause some new issues, or they will emerge with some new challenges, or they will come with some new suggestions. So all these will be emergence, and which they will touch the process. Now the process will tell whether those can be implemented or not, and how exactly they can be implemented. Like I can say, if XYZ people say we can have this new portal, then as per the organization need, then that will be checked. And the process will check the change management, the configuration management, all these things will be checked there. So that is what the BMIS bias is, which we need to understand. Then the human factor, because ultimately people are going to interact with technology. So there will be a human factor in between both of them. So that is what the domain one base concepts are, which you need to understand. If you have the understanding of all these base concepts, then it is very easy for you to work on the task statements. Okay, from the day one, it seems to be very hectic. It seems to be very, because I have taken this approach of going to the terms and to the task statement. The reason for the same is, if directly I'm going to touch the task statement and in between I'm going to explain all these terms there, then it will be very difficult, and also it is very confusing, because either we are able to understand the task statement or either we are able to understand the concept. Combining multiple concepts together within a task statement is very difficult, right? And also it is very confusing. That's why I have used this approach of dividing the, on first day I will just take the terms. On the second day I will take the task statement. So tomorrow is our day in which we are going to take the task statements. So with this I'm ending the session here. And I'm going to upload the slides and the video link on the Google Classroom also. You can access the same from there. With this, thank you. And I'm just checking out what are the, is the sensitivity related to confidentiality? Yes. Sensitivity and it means confidentiality are very related. But whenever we are saying that we want to have something, we want to provide confidentiality to something, then if that particular thing is having some value to us, having some sensitivity level to us, then only we can decide, okay, this level of confidentiality we can set for this particular thing, right? So that is the relation between confidentiality and sensitivity. Depending on the sensitivity, we will set the confidentiality level. If we say, yeah, it is very sensitive, the confidential level should be very high. We need to give maximum controls to secure that particular data. So, okay, the next one is how important is to have an understanding of all these framework from an exam standpoint. COBIT, TOGAF, ITIL, CMMI. It is very important. I'm telling you, very important to have the understanding. Do not go into depth of these standards, but go in depth of some of the standard. Two, I already told you, COBIT and ISO 27001. So these are the two standards which you need to go in depth, but normally rest of the standard do not go into that much of the depth. Okay, tomorrow same time. Yes, tomorrow the class will be at same time 2:30 IST. Okay, then some more. Anyone is having any other query? So okay, with this, thank you very much. Bye for now.